How now I know, Martha, you were involved with this before, but in getting involved with something, especially a storyline that you've been involved in for so long,
Mhm.
were you like so excited to continue that?
Yeah, I worked on seasons two, three, four, and then I stepped away because I was working with Elizabeth Moss on her other series in Chicago,
Hmm.
um, and then I was in New York for a show. Warren Littlefield also took me to help out on Fargo, so I had other things going on, and it was so nice to come back to the crew that we have on Handmaids, um, and to come back in the role of production designer. I was so happy that they had the faith in me for that. Uh, and just coming back to Toronto after being in many different places, the familiarity of the way
Right.
that we do things in a certain place. But the crew on Handmaid's Tale over the years have become, a very well-oiled machine, and the level of detail that they bring to the sets and the things that you can do with their talents
Yeah.
is kind of unmatched. So yeah, it was great to come back to them. And then Patty was new to the show, and I brought Patty in, and I was very excited to do that, to bring her expertise to the decoration side of things because the last season of Handmaids, they were still shooting season six when
Oh.
we started prep on
Oh.
this
Wow.
show.
Oh.
So we weren't, it just was too busy for the set deck department, to do both things at the same time. And I really needed to, design a new look for a new show. And
Yeah.
that required a lot of research. And so I was happy to bring Patty on.
Patty, did it feel like it's is there because there's rules to this story. There's rules in like the simplicity and the way that they live and everything. Was there a lot of research for you to go back and either read the books
Yeah,
there?
so
Yeah.
as soon as Martha called me, I read the book and I was working abroad and I read it in an afternoon and I was crazy about the book. It was so great. And then I started watching the entirety of The Handmaid's Tale.
Mm.
And I have to say I hadn't watched it and I just couldn't go to that place. Like I kept thinking it's just going to be too depressing. I don't
Yeah.
want to watch it. But then I'm so glad because it's such a great
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
And I really did need to watch it to understand that world. And there was so much, even though we weren't in the same town, we were still so involved with the characters were still hovering. I mean, there was a little bit, a few of them came back, as you see, like there's still a few people, but it's just that whole, you have to understand what it was before to understand the children of that world, which is what we were doing as the children. So
Yeah.
yeah,
There's
so it was a lot of research, actually.
I'm sure. Because to me the story is and it conveys through the design. There's so much oppression and empowerment, and how you guys sort of delicately like make the oppression of their lives interesting and colorful and orderly and everything. And it feels to me like it's almost like a much more almost like the dollhouse. It's such a perfect life that you've given like through the sets and everything, and how you've given them these perfect little girl rooms, and the shades of colors that you used. um can you talk about like your the dressing for that, and then the color palettes, especially for Agnes?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
Martha, yeah,
it
Martha,
comes down to, like, Margaret Atwood's book is written through perspective,
Hmm.
and Testaments refers to the fact that they're writing about their experience years later. And and the same was true for Handmaid's Tale. The original book was also, that was written from the perspective of June,
Hmm.
as a handmaid. And, June as a handmaid was essentially a prisoner, And so her world had that perspective. When we move into Testaments, we're now in the perspective of a little girl who's grown up in Gilead, and she has been provided for. She doesn't know a world outside of that. And so we were trying to create a world really through her eyes. So that had to do with, like all of her bedroom. It kind of began with that.
Yeah.
And in a way, the children in Gilead are kind of the jewel of their society. So they're, the goal is to have children because there's a fertility crisis going on. And so they give the children to like very rich commanders, and then, they live these very lavish lifestyles. So yeah, we started with the colors. I think anybody who knows the series knows that people of different classes wear different colors. And in the books, the girls of this age, teenage girls, wear plum. And so we had to kind of start with that color and then build a palette around the plum. But a little girl's room, it still has that aesthetic that I think we find in little girls in America. This ideal of sort of pinks and paler colors, but also the plum. And I think, you're showing images now of her bedroom, but a lot of this had to do with also the idea of kind of a freedom that she felt. So we designed this mural in the bedroom
I love
to give
that.
a sense of like landscape and depth and sort of living in a magical forest.
Yeah.
And then for Patty, I don't know, maybe you can talk about this a little bit, Patty, but like bringing in the richer textures and the laces and the
Yeah.
silk curtains um and all of the little details of her belongings from childhood, even though we meet her at a time when she's kind of at the cusp of that. This is very much her childhood bedroom.
Yeah.
And I think one thing, well, we tested a lot, like that lace that's
Mhm.
hanging for
On the
the
on the
for
canopy
the
bed.
bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tested so much. I mean, we looked at a lot with the DP because it was all about what it was going to look like through, because there were scenes coming up. Well, there's a spoiler alert that you actually see through the lace.
Oh God.
That's not much of a
Oh boy.
but even for the lace curtains, like the sheers, we looked at so many different fabrics. We were also trying to keep almost all of the fabrics are cotton and really natural fibers. We tried to keep that so much
Yeah.
with, because that is their world, that they don't have, they don't use plastics. They don't have, so even the toys you'll see, they're all either made of fabric or wood,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
all
even
natural.
inside the dollhouse. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Which was amazing because we found so many things. And then we had a person build some of the furniture for us so that it would be exact. Like she reupholstered, we would buy a little sofa and then she would reupholster it with the fabric colors that
so
we were
fun.
using.
Patty basically decorated the house and
I mean,
then decorated it again in miniature.
that's something I'd be like, oh, I really like this sofa, but can I get it in a miniature?
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
what was surprising is we would find them and we'd be like, oh my God, like we found the little outdoor lights that were very much like the one at the real location, because the exterior is a location.
mm,
And they were, yeah, so you see those little lights at the front of the house on either
oh
side of the
wow,
doors. They're almost identical to the ones at the house. So we were so excited. It
that's so
was,
great.
and then we had our electrician, who we have a set electrician who does all of our lighting. He was in there wiring it, and it was bizarre.
Well,
And
good thing you didn't have any grips in that dollhouse. It would have been broken it. Bumped into and scuffed walls.
they weren't allowed to touch it. We
Yeah.
literally said they're not allowed it because the whole front opens up and they weren't supposed to touch it.
Yeah. I'd have a security on that dollhouse. I don't know.
Yeah, the whole thing was designed for that opening shot of the series where you
Yeah.
come towards the dollhouse, you go through the window, and then you see Agnes behind. So there was actually a bit of a rig on it so that we could open it as the camera comes close to it. So the lens actually ends up at on the back wall inside the bedroom in the house. So um,
Yeah, it's a great
but it
shot.
was very delicate.
It's
Yeah.
very, it's just very like giving you a sense of like these kids are like dolls to people.
Yeah, and that I think within the room as well, you'll see, in the fabrics and in the architecture, we kind of created these framing devices.
Mm,
So the window seat is one of them, and that goes back actually to the Handmaid's Tale. They set up a very iconic shot in the first season, which was June sitting in the window. And it kind of became a recurring theme throughout the seasons. And so we reprised it here, but we gave her this sort of almost theater-like curtain,
yeah,
and framed her in the window. But then if when you pull back from that, there's frames within the bedroom as well. There's a double arch. And then
right.
when you pull back from that, there's frames within the bed. So there's some shots, like the wide, the sort of what we started the design with was a wide shot from Agnes's perspective in the bed, like when she
Mm,
wakes up and she looks through those multiple frames to her dollhouse. And it was just this idea that she's a doll in a
yeah.
dollhouse.
There's
She's
a there
framed in these ways.
there's a great shot. I don't have it, but it's her closet and she's sitting at her vanity, I believe.
Yeah,
Oh,
You just
yeah, that's
see
beautiful.
that the symmetry of all that and it's lit
yeah.
perfectly. It's just beautiful, beautiful shots. Yeah.
Yeah, Handmaid's Tale kind of set up this language of symmetry,
Hmm.
and we embraced that a lot. Greta Zazula, our DP, and Mike Barker. And Mike was, it was speaking of coming back to Handmaid's Tale and to the family, coming back and working with Mike again was amazing. Like he's just so much fun to work with, and he really had such a hand in how this process developed. And but with the two of them, looking at what those shots were, and basically I pitched out ideas, and just watching the two of them go in and find these moments. There were frames that I had in mind,
Yeah.
but you provide.
You don't want to be like, shoot, no, 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 no.
Yeah, exactly.
Look over here. Yeah.
So when they found them, I was so happy. I mean, I knew they would. I
Yeah.
knew they would, but
Well, I
yeah.
mean, when something's designed that way, it doesn't, I mean, it kills me sometimes when if you've set up this beautiful vignette over here and they
Yeah.
look over at this blank wall or like the one spot of the room where you're like, that's not my favorite. I'm always like,
Yeah.
oh, I gave you so much over here. How much prep did you guys have?
Um,
Because you have a
from
lot of builds,
Yeah, we did.
right? Yeah.
We did. I started designing early, like a kind of pre-prep with some set designers, and we basically worked on the school and the bedroom. Um, we had some early scouting. The director came over from England, and we picked basically the school exterior and the
Mhm.
Mackenzie House exterior, just so that I had something to work off. um, to design towards, like within the
Yeah.
same style.
Yeah.
And then we started kind of full prep, I guess, in January of that year. And that's when Patty came on. And
Remember, I think
um,
I came on a little early, remember, because there was so much testing that you wanted to do. We kind of
yeah,
had to talk the production into letting, just so that the fabrics could be tested and wallpapers and things that I needed time. Normally it would be a buyer that
Yeah.
would be looking for those things, but I went out and did it myself because we just needed someone to be sourcing things for them to test right off the bat. And it
and
was
one of
all,
the
yeah.
one of the other things I said to Patty that, initially was we're going to have to build a lot of things because we want that handmade aesthetic. And so the
Mhm.
lead times were quite long, especially for things like tiles. There's a lot of tiles in this show.
Yeah.
And, Patty found some amazing local builders. We had handmade tiles made in Toronto. We had furniture made by, where were your
Oh,
tables? And
they were the Mennonites.
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah.
So but it was interesting because they have
For the
placed the,
lunchroom? The lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that. Let's look at that.
And I think they did our chairs also in the kitchen in the Mackenzie house. But so they did all that furniture. And a lot of it, they do have warehouses in the US. So they're because I learned a lot about the Mennonites and how they live and everything through
Yeah.
this because they move around. So they tend to have like they'll have a family living here and then they'll move partially just to keep it with a lot of variety for because there's just a small group. So they'll move. But in this case, he has a shop here and he makes a lot of furniture. But then they had a warehouse in the US. So some of it he could bring and some he had to make. But we did need a lot of lead time for it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
But
That's
to
Yeah.
what,
answer your question, I think we went to camera 12 or 13 weeks after that prep, that full
oh,
prep started. And we always knew that this school build would be more time consuming than that. So we pushed that back in the schedule.
mm.
It kind of worked out well because one of the actors, who I'm not going to spoil it, but one of the actors was only available on week one. So we had to shoot all of their stuff first, and that did not involve the school. So that helped us actually quite a bit.
That usually never happens.
I know.
It's usually
It's
the other way around. They're only available for 1 week. They're in the most
um,
intricate set. Let's move all that up. So
yeah.
bravo to that because I'm in
Well,
that world right now.
it was also tricky because the director, understandably, really wanted to start like in this lunchroom with all of the cast, just
Oh,
so that he could get a a sort of camaraderie out of them and get a feeling and sort of have everybody together understand the world that they were in. And so he wanted to do this one on day one. And, we had a little bit of a back and forth. He at one point he said, just put plywood on the floor. I don't care what the floor looks
what do
like.
you mean you don't care
Yeah,
what the
I
floor
know.
looks like? What if the whole overhead shot is the best one? Like you see
Yeah,
the parquet floor, like the design of
yeah.
it and
I
everything.
mean, I understood his needs, but this was such a detailed and big space to create. So,
So this is
um,
all a build.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No, it's beautiful. The design around the first and second floor, the lights up above are though. Where did you get those? How did you get so many?
we built them.
Oh, you built them. I was gonna
Yeah,
say. No, they're
yeah.
beautiful.
I'll send you a behind the scenes photo of that. Those
Please.
are basically cones that, I mean, when I first designed or like thought of using that lighting for the ceiling, because we wanted it to feel like a school.
Yeah.
But we wanted it to feel so opulent that these are the richest private school girls in Gilead. And so it needed to have this kind of level to it that was like, this is a ballroom, but it's a school lunchroom. Um, and originally we designed those as half spheres. So the light fixture bounces up into it and comes down. Um, but those in diameter are about 4 feet. Like you
Wow.
can't tell because they're on the ceiling. And making those, we just didn't have the time to make a perfect half sphere. But we kind of realized that with the light bouncing up, you wouldn't necessarily see the shape of it. So it's actually a cone and it has a flat top.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it like it's circular in this direction. And then, but when you get to the top of the cone, it flattens. And that
Mhm.
just was a lot easier to build. So we could do it in the time, but the whole thing was rigged on the ground. It was the first thing that we put up the steel first. And then we rigged that all on the ground with the grips on motors, and then basically the lighting team came in and wired everything up. And I mean that was quite a process of figuring out what kind of light to put in those.
Patricia, did you have the whole thing dressed and then they were like, take everything out so we can motor this down? 'Cause
No, I think that because there was so much happening in here, it was so planned of when we were going to do everything. So it was, but I do have to say that the lead man that did this set, he had to move those tables and chairs out so many times.
I believe it.
And it wasn't just for setting it up. I mean, there was a little bit of that for setting it up, but it was mostly when we were shooting.
Yeah.
And they're big, long tables, and there's so many of everything. So that was a lot of work.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they're like, what are they, 12 feet or something? They're
yeah,
very, very heavy.
That's
So,
great.
and the studio space was pretty full between the set and the backdrop and all of the plants that we had outside as well for the shoot off. So they had to exit the building when we took them out.
Oh, wow.
There was nowhere to put them. There was no space. So that
Oh,
was quite a thing. They
and
kept
they needed a
scripting.
ramp. They would have to put a ramp in as well.
rampant.
Yeah.
Get them on
So
dollies.
the ramp would get installed so they could get everything in and out.
Mm.
We wanted to make use of the space. And I actually designed it when I read episode 5, which you haven't seen yet.
Mm-mm.
But when I read episode 5, wait, is it 5? The ball? Yeah, 5, 4, 5.
Bye.
When
I
I read
haven't seen.
episode 5, that's when the space went in my mind from a single height space to a double height space with a
Mm.
mezzanine. But once we had that, the writers came in and Bruce, our showrunner, just thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if they had gym class in this space? And we played badminton and we thought that was really fun. So, but it did mean these big redresses and with the schedule,
Yeah. What
that type of thing.
did you have outlines? Did you have outlines for
Yeah.
yeah, and scripts that were pretty close to outlines so you knew things
Um,
or
yeah, I think we had when we began, I can't remember exactly. I think maybe we had 6 like full outlines and then
that's good.
yeah, I don't think the last 2 episodes were still a little vague at the beginning. Those came a bit later, but
And then did you cross shoot or did you do one at a time?
we did blocks. The first 3 were together,
Oh
and
wow,
that was
that's a big
yeah,
block.
it was great. I liked doing that because you just have a bit more flexibility in the schedule. It helped, as I was saying, it helped for
Oh
us to
yeah.
push the lunch, the dining hall back in the schedule. It was really about one of the actors in
Mm.
episode 3 who was only available in the first week. So,
This
um,
you sent a picture of the pool in the beginning, which you only I'm assuming we're coming back to it because this looks like a lot of work. I don't know, but
well, this is actually a location that, so originally this was scripted in the woods.
oh,
And
cool.
the idea was that they go out and it's sort of a witchy moment and they go to a pool in the middle of the woods. Um, but it was going to be shot in early April.
Oh,
And
too cold.
in Toronto in early April, it's actually often snowing.
Too cold.
Um, and because they wanted to, Mike and Greta wanted to do these underwater shots.
Mm,
And so, because we were going to build a little kind of like a baptism pool
right.
in the woods. That was sort of the initial idea. But then as they got into figuring out what shots they wanted, um, the size of the pool kept having to get bigger and bigger because they wanted to get a camera down in there. And it turned out to be kind of $1 million enterprise to build a pool in the woods. And we just didn't have that budget to support for one scene. So um, I just started searching for the most beautiful pools in Toronto. Um, Sort of, I asked the locations to send us any mansion that had an indoor pool in a like beautiful conservatory, and they had some options to show us. We went to see a few. But I stumbled on this one. It's actually in a hotel, and it's
Oh,
a kind of
beautiful.
mid-century hotel. But what I thought the director would love about it is the circular
Yeah.
roof, the glass roof. And we didn't really, there's a great shot that they got over top with a drone over top of the
Yeah.
dome. that we hadn't imagined until the locations department brought their drone out and got an overhead, and we realized it looks like an eye, and it just ended up being a really great shot. But this was a very banal space. It was quite imperfect, and so we went in and we kind of removed a lot of like pool skimmers and like little
Oh,
boxes and all that sort of stuff that was around, and just tried to make it as perfect as possible. And then designed this backlit wall for Lydia to be in front of, and using our sort of the language of our school, which has stained glass tracery and a floating cross in the water,
yeah.
and then these great candle votives that Patty found.
It's so
That
graphic.
Yeah, the idea was just to make it as basically as graphic as possible. Um, and then, they could get their ethereal watery shots, and because the pool was actually, it had a shallow end, but the deep end was actually quite deep, so it worked quite well.
It's a beautiful presentation on the screen. It's very graphic and very like, oh, ugh, we're getting baptized, but what else could happen here? I don't know. It
Yeah,
seems,
I mean, there's a great moment where suddenly it's like, is she being drowned?
yeah,
Because
it's
it
very
turns like that
sinister.
for a second. It's kind of the first time you see like, oh, what is
Yeah, the
this creature?
silent.
Yeah.
Dealing with them. So you're selecting a couple, a lot of exteriors on the show to match, and this is their school that you talked about a minute ago. But is this is this a school? Is this a house? What is this gigantic, beautiful mansion you have for an exterior?
We scouted a lot of schools,
This is a school.
and schools are very difficult, obviously, because if it's a school for younger children, privacy is very hard. Like, you don't want cameras around kids and security, and if it's university schedules, and we did consider shooting at a few universities or private schools. And that, for the crew, that just pushes the whole crew into weekends, because,
Yeah.
you can't really have it during the week. And it also, it just reduces the amount of stuff you can do there because of dressing time. Like, you would probably go in on Friday night, work an
Right.
overnight to get it ready, shoot Saturday, Sunday, but then when do you undress it? So it just logistically was very hard. And the locations team brilliantly found this place, which is actually a mansion, and it's one of the
Wow.
most expensive houses in Toronto. It belongs to a family who are quite wealthy. They don't live there.
Of
Um,
course.
and the
What?
the 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 guy who owns it, his mother is a big fan of Margaret Atwood, which helped us so much.
Oh, nice.
So they were so excited to be part of the show. And we did a season-long deal with them, so that basically we went in, installed everything, put all our
Oh,
dressing in,
that's so
left
nice.
it there for the run of the show. Yeah, that was huge for us, because inside the house we actually did a lot of construction as well. The interior spaces had no doors.
Oh,
So,
oh yeah, you have these beautiful.
yeah, we had to put all the doors in. There were no door jambs. It was a very sort of open, flowing space, which worked for them, but not for us, because Lydia wouldn't have an open office. Like, she's doing things in there that are private. So,
I have to
um,
say, I did. I know it looks a little weird. I did brighten this picture. Just I had to brighten it because it was so dark. It's like I can't see what I'm gonna talk about. So I did brighten it, so that's why the colors are off there. But
yeah.
yeah, I love her office. I love the like aesthetic of it and like the like very very astute of like her against the windows looking at people coming in, having a little conference table, having a little seating area that she's not entertaining by that fireplace. That's like a facade. It's like
No, but sometimes she sits there and she has a sherry. So,
yeah.
that's her thing.
Yeah, I can
And
imagine.
this room also looks directly onto the rotunda where her statue is. So
Oh,
it
I
really was. And Patty found these perfect little benches
love it.
that sit on each side of her door. And so there's a shot. in the first episode where Agnes is waiting to go see her, and it's
Right.
like you're sitting in the principal's
Yeah.
office, that little moment.
Um, Patricia, what was your inspiration for giving her an office in this one?
Well, it's more working with the design of the school that Martha had been working on because we did this huge build. Because we've only seen so far of the school, you've only seen the cafeteria, but the build was much bigger than that. We had a classroom that we would alternate to become different
Oh, yeah.
classrooms.
The art classroom, I have that. Yeah.
The art classroom's actually at this location.
Mm.
So
Oh.
at where they're doing the weaving, that is in a build
Oh, wow.
stage.
Oh,
And so much of it, there's many parts of this that it's all specific design. And so we were trying to bring that element into her office. So you can see her tapestry,
yeah, the
which
tapestry
was
is great.
there, and all of that was designed. And then we had somebody weave everything for us. And originally we wanted our weaver, who we had used as a consultant for the girls when they're weaving in the class with their looms. We had wanted her to do it, and she basically said, well, I wouldn't even have time in the whole project that you're shooting to
Oh my
do
God.
one of these things because it's so time
The
consuming.
craftsmanship of it.
Yeah, and so we had no idea. So we had to go to a weaver who uses machine weaving, and he created all of these. And so you'll see them throughout. In this case, you see the one over the mantle, but there's an amazing one in the school in their big, is it a foyer, Martha, that you'd call
Yeah,
it?
it's the lobby space, yeah.
Lobby. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a very tall one over that mantle. So there are definitely elements that we've pulled from the main set into this room, and also the furniture. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of it is an arts and crafts aesthetic, like the influence of the design that Martha had in the first place. So yeah, so that's mostly it. There's just those pieces in there, and we found some great pieces
I love
um,
the desk.
for
I love that.
collectors.
Yeah.
The
We
desk
did
is
so
so cute.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of kind of treasure hunting to find the pieces for these sets.
And the desk is nicely scaled for Anne Dowd. You
Yeah.
know, it's just
Yeah.
a nice kind of feminine scale for her. Um,
The
and
desk is so beautiful. You can't see here, but it's curved. It's just a
Yeah.
beautiful piece. And it's from a collector, this one person who just sells on Instagram, basically.
Oh.
And he always has the most amazing pieces. And we saw
I,
this.
I
And at
think it
first,
popped up in my feed one morning and I was like, Patty, we need this.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, because both of us follow him because he's got amazing stuff. But and I think we originally were worried it'd be too small, but then as it turned, but it's not small, it's just that for a size room like this. But as Martha said, it ended up being perfect for her.
No, it's perfect.
Perfect
Yeah.
and
It's
feminine and
also feminine. I mean, a
yeah.
lot of what you guys have, there's so many, circular pieces and feminine pieces, and especially with the arts and crafts. And I mean, I think it's like the Art Nouveau of the flowers, and it's very feminine the way that you've integrated all of that together.
I hadn't thought about how nice it was to design a show so much about women, actually. It's a lot of these spaces are the school, men aren't supposed to go into the school. Um, and in Agnes's world, obviously, as well.
Do
Yeah, it's nice.
do either of you have daughters?
Patty
I have
does.
a daughter.
You have daughters. Did that affect you in decorating this?
I think that I mean, always for bedrooms, she's definitely an influence on
Yeah.
all the sets that I've ever done, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, and there is so much to be said about little girls loving pink. Even little boy, I have a son too, and he loved pink when he was little. And
Yeah.
a lot of boys do. We just always go, no, you don't want the pink sweatpants. You
Yeah.
want the black ones or whatever color for the boy. But yeah, they love pink. And so we talked about combining the pink and purple to get the plum with the pink and things like that. But yeah, for sure, she's always a big part of it.
Is it hard to, because I feel like I would just think of this lifestyle I don't have a daughter. I have two sons. So I feel like in decorating this, I would just think of this like, oh man, I don't know how this is just such an awful story that
Well, I know
having
one thing about it is that they don't have mess. Everything is tidied by the Marthas. And so
Mm,
everything is so perfect all the time, which is completely different from my
yeah,
daughters, and most
the
people's daughters.
sons. But yeah,
But yeah, I mean, you're thinking of it, but at the same time, you're remaining hopeful that these girls are going to be
yeah,
different,
yeah.
that they're,
It's kind of funny to be in this position of like when I was designing, I was basically putting my head into the people who are in charge of this world and the vision that they're trying to create for their society. And you kind of have to put aside the part of the story that is dark because actually they believe in it. So you have to
Yeah,
design this thing that they believe in. And then, I guess for Agnes's room too, like she believes in it. So
yeah,
you don't have darkness in it because that's the character. And I
yeah,
mean, I think that's the case whenever you're doing a set, there's a character who created it or that it exists around, and you have to just envelop their vision of what their space is or their take on their space.
yeah. Well,
Um,
I didn't include the dentist office, but that's
yeah.
it's creepy. That
oh
is
my,
something I have to say is terrifying of just being like trusting someone like that. You're being put under there, you don't know what happens, and to maybe think that something happens to you when you have no control over it is just terrifying. So
The dentist is terrifying in the best case scenario for
I,
me. It's like an
uh,
absolute nightmare.
the older I get, the more I hate to go to the dentist anyway. So go
You
for
know,
it.
I had an appointment this morning and I changed it because of this schedule. So thanks for getting
Oh,
me out of the dentist.
oh, there you go. You're welcome. There you go. We're looking at one of the art rooms and everything. Um, they have such, I mean, it's kind of ingrown when you're watching it. Like there's no, they're all crafts, right? They're painting, they're knitting, they're not being really taught. Is it like math and science or anything? Like there's no evidence of that in this university. Um,
No, and we kind of invented we kind of like we brought a bit of that to the story as the art department because um thinking about what those classes might be, they have, kind of behavioral classes and they do have some sex ed once. Although it's kind of funny the way it's taught because they don't get told anything. Um, but we thought, well, what are the other classes that they're being taught? And thinking about the Handmaid's Tale, Serena Joy used to do a lot of gardening. That was sort of her,
mm,
I guess, release and flower arranging. And so, but I was also looking at the history of women's colleges in the US. And when you look through a lot of those images, um, there are images of women dyeing wool and
mm,
weaving and, making wallpapers. And that's, to me, that was such an exciting aesthetic opportunity that we lean into these homemaking activities that they're being taught, which, in some ways is like a distraction, like, oh, just do your knitting, dear.
right.
Uh, but then for us, it meant that we could build a world in the school where a lot of these things were made through the school. So all of the weavings, the tapestries.
They're
And
used.
then, yeah, so we did, so this room, I hate this photo because
Oh,
it was
sorry.
meant to be seen from the hallway only. And
Oh,
so what you're looking at here is the original fireplace of the location, which was very kind of like a French uh, style, which was
mhm.
kind of not in the vein of what we were trying to create in the school. So in Lydia's office, she had one of these, and we actually masked it with our
No, let me
our
see.
design.
Yeah.
Um, but we were never going to see that angle of the art room, so we didn't spend the money to cover
Oh,
that one.
That's beautiful. I didn't realize that you made that whole mantle in her.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
Underneath that is the Baroque style
Oh, wow.
fireplace that you saw in the other room.
Oh, that's beautiful. And you got to add the color. Is that tile or is that like a, a stone or like
Yeah, well, it's meant to look like tile. That one we did faux tile, I believe. But we did on the inside have to do because it does also
deep?
it is a functioning fireplace. Like
Mhm.
the we used the existing gas fireplace and then made everything fireproof. So, but as when I was talking about the crew before and the things you can do, they can faux finish, they can make it look like ceramic. They can,
Yeah.
um,
Scenic painters are
design.
magic men,
Oh,
magic women. They just really,
magic,
yeah.
magic. And
And
on our show, I had very specific ideas of these handmade tiles and all of the different glazes. And those are actually quite hard to achieve because it's not just a flat color. There's
right.
so much depth. I mean, this is why I'm attracted to them, is there's so much depth in a glaze.
Yeah.
And the camera picks that up and there's a sheen and the surface isn't perfect. And so Patty did have and sourced a lot of tiles on the show, but then sometimes we just couldn't get them in time, or we couldn't get the quantity, or we couldn't get the color that I wanted. And so we actually took a different tile and would refinish it into a different color. And, we were very specific about the palettes.
Mhm. Um, Patricia, just because I don't, sometimes I forget. But are you, Toronto's different than like LA and New York's different than LA. So you do tile and do you do wallpaper and carpet and windows? What are you doing? You doing all that?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do that. But the set dressers don't install it. So that is the difference with some places, because I know it's
Right.
different everywhere, but
Yeah.
they don't do any of those installations. So um, for the carpet, we would source it and then we bring somebody in to install. Like outside,
Yeah.
whereas sometimes construction departments do it, but they don't in this case. And the same thing with wallpaper, we do it, we source it.
You source it and you
Yeah.
install it. Or well, the wallpaper
And
guys,
no, then the scenics install the wallpaper.
the scenics installed. So then in
Mhm.
the bathroom, which I love this bathroom. The tile is sourced by you, Patricia?
Yeah, and that was through the person that I found, BlackRock Tiles. This amazing woman who makes these handmade tiles, and they're uneven. You can find some now, like you can find sometimes the Spanish tiles, and they're a little bit uneven and they feel more handmade, but in this case, they were truly handmade and exceptional, and that she showed us so many different colors, and Martha picked a variety of colors, so that's not all just one color in there, it's mixed up.
Mm, that's
um,
beautiful.
and it was a long time to get them, so we ended up with the floor. The scenic had to make the flooring.
Wow, that's
we,
Yeah, so
we
those are tiles. I think that we got a white tile that had a nice uneven texture. And then the scenics, it's a long process because they have to basically first prep the tile to receive because it's
wow.
going on the floor, it has to be very robust, the finish. It'll scrape off quite easily. So they've got a whole series of passes they put through in their spray booth, but then they managed to get the depth out of them, even with the fact that they're painted. But yeah, we picked, I think the floor has three different colors. But even within one tile, there was like a bit of
Wow,
gradient
beautiful,
variation.
variegated and everything. This bathroom has such some great scenes so far in it, and it just the design of it lends to it where it's like an island of sinks, like 8 sinks and mirrors, but there's no wall there, so it's just so you can either look at yourself or you can look at the person, behind or diagonal from you, so you get to see and have this great conversations while there's still mirrors there, which I love mirrors. And I think when directors and cinematographers can use that in their storytelling, I always want to help lend to that. So, Patricia, does or is this in the design or did you find these
No, this was all custom. The only thing that we got were the sinks and the sink hardware,
Mhm.
but everything else was designed by Martha.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
The mirrors, like I think in the initial design, we had these back-to-back sinks. And it was actually Mike, the director, who said, "Can you give me like elements to shoot through?" He was like, "Give me a towel rack or something." And
Mm.
then we realized, well, because we had mirrors on the wall. And then we realized, well, let's put the mirror in between and did this nice oval shape. And then the brackets are also like, you'll see this symbol throughout the school, which is this triangle
Oh
pointed
yeah.
down.
Okay.
And that was one of the first things we developed was like, what is their symbol as the school? Like, what is their school logo, I guess? Um,
I
and
know
we
what it kind of
developed,
looks like. I mean,
I mean, yeah, so it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
so the upside down, the pointed down triangle is a symbol for fertility,
Hmm.
like sort of, through history and you can find it in different places. And that is their entire goal is to become fertile women. So we wanted to use that as the basis. But once we started developing that language, I think one of the first people I brought onto the show was the graphic designer. And that's not typical. Usually
Yeah.
graphics comes on a little bit later. But I knew that I wanted to develop that language and then use it throughout. So that triangle again made its way into these brackets. And so we had those fabricated,
Beautiful.
just so that you continue to see that shape throughout school.
I love these faucets too. Just putting it out there. I love them. They're so pretty.
And the towels were Irish linen. They were
Oh,
one of the more expensive things on those sets. I mean, they
Not
were
the most expensive thing though.
not the most, but they were definitely, most things were expensive. I mean, when we're trying all these natural things and these beautiful things and doing so much custom work, but the props people had to get extras and they were probably like not happy with
yeah,
our,
yeah.
because they
There's
were
always
going,
But
like, well, I got the two mugs. I don't know if you want to go get more. That's up to you. Just tell the actors don't drop them. It'll be fine.
I mean the stuff had to look expensive. Like
Yeah,
these
it
women are,
reads, but it reads as expensive. Like,
well, and
yeah,
they had to look like they were woven. Somebody made them for
yeah,
them. They weren't,
and the other thing is, it's not a culture of excess. Like they would have a handmade thing, but they wouldn't have hundreds of them. So, it's not like we had to get, I mean, it was a school, so there were 100 and, we imagined the school had maybe 120 kids in it. So some things had to be multiples, and like the dishware, for example, in the dining hall
mm,
was a little bit more utilitarian. We considered doing something that was kind of higher end, but it just felt like, well, that's not a school. Like it has to be a bit more
yeah.
robust.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
washed a million times. Um, there's a lot. There's some great shots of some staircases in here too, and all of these. And again, now that you're saying that, your symbols are in all of these windows that go
Yes.
up this beautiful staircase, and that color is amazing when they're, especially with the plums and the pinks walking.
Yeah.
It's
That
beautiful.
was the goal was to find, so in The Handmaid's Tale, when they set up season one with June and Red, like I rewatched the first season
Hmm.
because that set up the palette, and I wanted to, kind of look at it again with new eyes, thinking about these plums and like what worked so well in the palette. And Elizabeth Moss has these beautiful blue eyes, and they put her in these very cool colored sets, and then she's got the red on, and it was such a contrast. And for the character of the handmaid to stand out in these cool environments just works so well.
Yeah,
And so when we started this show, I was really looking for like, what is that color combination that's going to work for the plum? Like how can we stand them out against
yeah, I
the
think
backgrounds? But then also like we didn't want the colors to be too monochromatic. So within that lobby space, there's different shades and tones of that color. Um, you know,
Yeah, it's not
on the
flat at all.
columns as well. Yeah, there's all kinds of different areas are painted in different colors, but we also did a lime wash on the
Oh,
walls, which gives it such rich depth.
oh,
Um,
cool.
it like you paint it and then you go over top with a solution, and that idea actually came from the location because the location had a lime wash on their more mustardy colored walls. And we didn't love the mustard color, but we had to, we needed to tie it in to our school. So we do have those warm tones as well. And there's a lobby space and then a hallway, and you see the two of them together. And it's sort of like it all combines into this palette. And bringing in those warm tones into the marbles as well. Like we have this caramel toned marble that
Mm.
kind of relates to the location colors. But when we saw um, the lime wash of the location,
I don't think I've
I
ever heard of that.
I said to my
Awesome.
scenic department, like, do you think we can lime wash these walls? And he said, we can do whatever you want to do. So he had a little team that went through and they became experts and they were so quick at doing it. Which, it was a challenge in some of these spaces because they're very tall and just the logistics of figuring out how to sequence things so you can get your scaffolding up there. And
Yeah.
but it gives a depth to the
Yeah. It
colors
looks
too.
alive in a sense. Like it's not flat. It gives it,
Yeah.
yeah, the depth and everything.
I
Um,
think lime washing kind of became trendy like last year, weirdly, because suddenly, or maybe it was just my algorithm,
It
but
is, no, it is.
suddenly I was seeing a lot of lime washing on
That
Instagram.
is, and it's like they get the stuff, it's some kind of Italian product. It's
oh,
Yeah.
Italy that people are getting. Because I have a friend who's an interior designer and she had used it in something. And then we saw it here and it is really beautiful.
I
Yeah,
love
I
it.
mean, the location was it was a very expensive paint finish and we were not allowed to change it. We weren't allowed to touch it. Because they had actually brought somebody from Italy to paint their house.
Oh, wow.
And so they said, like, if
He
you
doesn't
damage
live there.
anything, you got to fly that guy in. So the first thing we had our scenic department do was like make samples to match their walls so that we could then use some of that within our set. So they learned quickly like
Wow.
how to make that. I mean, I know they already knew how to lime
Yeah.
wash, but
But on what you know what I mean? Like sometimes you're like, oh, I learned that, I know about that, but when am I gonna get to lime a wall? Like you know what I mean?
I
Like
know.
sometimes you
Yeah.
never get to use some of these skills that you might have or want to do, or like make rock. You know what I mean? Like paint rocks, paint tiles for floor. Like,
Yeah.
it just depends on the project.
I'll never say never, but I feel like I'm gonna want to lime wash everything now because
Uh-oh. Better hold on to those scenics then. It did such a phenomenal job.
oh yeah, I hope I can. Yeah.
There's such integration with the wardrobe and the set dressing. So when you're doing like the closets and everything, are are you just, you know, give me over all your wardrobe? Are you making these yourselves? Like, are these yours? Because sometimes wardrobe doesn't like to share. I'm gonna be honest.
Well, at the beginning, she said, by the way, I have to give you everything. And so we
Oh
were
yeah,
going,
and sometimes they want to do, which is great. I don't want to go,
yeah.
yeah,
But for Agnes's closet, she really just didn't have enough. And
right.
so we had found at like these stores like George and these different stores, luckily that color, there was variations on the plum and she has a range just like she does for the colors for the wives and everything. There is a one color that you see most often, but there are ranges of tones. And so the color was trending. So we were finding these mauve and different colored little sweaters and things that were just simple. And if they were folded, you didn't know. And so she did eventually say, I showed her some things. I said, because she gave us some things that I felt like we had seen around and that we could get. So I showed her things and she said, yeah, go ahead and use those. It was really helpful. But then the really specific stuff, she gave us
Yeah.
everything.
Agnes has a wonderful closet. too.
Yeah.
Nice big closet for her. But this is always fun, a display, but the simplicity of this and like the like these are your choices. You have three choice, like you one choice really, or you have this choice, and it's such a fun set to do of like, oh, if it only was that easy, if I had a I say it all the time. I kind of wish I had a uniform. I went to Catholic school and now I kind of wish I had a uniform every day
I
so I don't have to
encourage
think
people
about
to
it.
have find your uniform and
Yeah.
just do it.
So I don't have to think about what I'm wearing every day at, 4 in the morning when I'm getting dressed. So yeah,
Exactly.
I'm all for it, kind of. Um, but a fun set to do, I would think.
Yeah, this set was a challenge because it was we were kind of building out an interior in an existing backlot set, which I found very hard to do. It was very specifically choreographed for a stunt, and so this was actually an L shape that was never meant to be an interior set when it was built, so it was very small. And suddenly we had a scene in there with I think it was like 16 girls,
When they're
and
hiding after the bomb, is that what it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so we tried to come up, to build out the interior with lots of texture, and make it a dress shop. They keep everything very flat to the walls so that they had space because, it was like a crowd of people in there. Um, and we kind of designed it to some specific angles. But Greta, our DP, kept saying after this day shooting, she was like, "That's my favorite set." And it really was like,
So you
it
never
was,
know.
yeah, it was one of the ones that I was like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do with this?" But it did turn out beautifully. I mean, it rained the night before we shot it, and that lino floor we put down, which I liked the finish of, was like soaked through.
Oh no.
But we mopped it up and made do.
So when they're walking through the towns and everything, is that a backlot or is that a town you found? Like, is that
Different
mixed?
places,
Mixed.
different places.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the hardest things actually is shooting like a Gilead street.
Yeah.
Um,
This is so perfect.
yeah, you have to have a specific kind of architecture. You have to have control and ability to, dress storefronts, remove all the graphics, get rid of the cars, bring in electric vehicles. Like it's a challenge to dress a big exterior.
That-
And on our show, they didn't want to go too far afield from the city.
Right.
Um, for budgetary reasons, we had our priorities, which was school, but it just meant that we had a real struggle finding a place we could shoot scenes like that. And yeah, that particular the dress shop street was really all about the bus crash and the stunt. And
And
so that one,
the flower shop, is that? Because that's like
the
another,
flower shop
is
we
that right?
shot in Hamilton, which is a city like 45 minutes from Toronto. And that turned out to be one of my favorite sets, actually. Those flowers were gorgeous. And we found a little, sort of strip that worked.
Yeah, poor flower girl.
Yeah,
Um,
flower girl.
you do get into some beautiful like, interiors too of the Colonel's house, Agnes's father, her house. This is her house, right? I'm not.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me about wallpaper and giving them a little glam. I mean, it's fun. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful mix.
This one was, it was about her stepmother, Paula. So Paula's character, who's quite, mean to her,
Yeah.
and she's a equestrian. They live somewhere close to Washington, but out in the countryside. And so we looked at a lot of Virginia and Maryland sort of horse estates. Like there's some great websites if you want to shop for an equestrian estate and just looking through some of the properties. We wanted to really embrace the idea of the surrounding landscape. And so that's what the wallpaper is about. It's like bringing in this sort of pastoral
Beautiful.
feel. And then with Paula, we wanted to give her a kind of, she's a little bit more contemporary than some of the handmade season sets. She has a little bit of that edge to her, but also we gave her this idea of black accents, which
Mm.
I think we wanted within throughout this series. I talked a lot with Mike and Greta about wanting to have a brighter palette and maybe you know lighter rooms and maybe even softer colors. But Mike said, we have to maintain the idea of contrast within that. And actually, this black accent thing I think works really, really well.
Yeah.
To bring that in, even though the room is actually quite bright and airy, this like blackness. Um, I really like the way it works. And Patty found some great like geometric um motifs in there as well.
They're
That table has this,
beautiful.
Yeah,
yeah.
that the
Beautiful
top.
circular table.
And it had the most beautiful pattern on it. We also, well, the black was good for kind of this the severity of the character, but we also had the Greek key that
Mhm.
shows up in a lot very subtly. But that was also on the top of that table. It has a Greek key
Oh,
ring,
okay.
really beautiful.
Yeah.
But just because that's kind of the Greek key to me is very, I don't know, severe as well.
Yeah.
Historic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you, what, I don't, maybe they show it and I missed it, but who's in this painting here? Is that,
That's a photograph of Agnes and her parents,
oh,
her adopted parents, yeah.
oh, yeah.
We shot it actually in that space, but looking in a different direction. And I think there was, yeah, there was a conversation with the showrunner about having photographs of her through the space, because she is kind of the pride and joy of the family, the fact that they have this child. Um, and so we managed to do a little photo shoot. And then in a later episode, you'll see we kind of flash back in time to before Paula came onto the scene.
Oh.
And so we actually got to sort of,
But did you have to redo this a lot? Did you have to redo?
yeah, we redressed for the look of her previous mother.
Oh,
Um,
I'm excited to see that.
yeah. And then there are a few elements, like there's a history to this space because there are a few elements that remain between the two. But mostly Paula came in and was like, okay, this is my house now,
Yeah.
um and changed a lot.
I don't like her.
Yeah.
I like her style, but I don't like her. But just how is sourcing things? How is your world of getting doubles and everything? I kind of always ask because it's such a challenge now.
That's hard. It is hard. And everything is online now.
I know. I
It
know.
just, you can't find it in the showroom. You'll see it and then you have to wait and order, or you just order online and wait and hope it's going to come in time.
Yeah. Even
But
going to places like and then it's like, can I just buy the floor model? Can I just have this? And they won't give it up. It's like so
yeah.
annoying.
But I think mostly for having the doubles, it was mostly lighting, as you see here.
Yeah.
Um, we were, yeah, like for the furniture pieces, luckily we could usually, if we found something amazing, it was okay that we didn't have a double on it.
Yeah.
Like this table and
We
you know,
ran into trouble with the tariffs. Like that was a major moment for us because that was right when we were in prep, January and February
Oh
of
my God.
2025.
Sorry, I'm just apologizing for all that. But
Yeah.
what's interesting, I've been on a couple of tax credit shows, which are amazing, and we're all so happy, but they also restrict us from buying things online. Like
Mhm.
you have to spend the money in the state. You have to,
they do. Yeah, we have more. Yeah, we have to shop a certain amount in Canada for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and then we can order some things from the US. And we end up having to. I mean, we can't
I
get
have
them.
to. I have found a little bit of a loophole that even if the company isn't in California, if they have a warehouse in California and ship from there, so maybe you can try to
That's
get
really
it.
interesting, though. We don't have that limitation. We could
Oh,
get it from anywhere that we want, but they do specify that we try not to
yeah,
shop too much in the US because you know, they have agreed to, I guess, get a certain amount in wherever
yeah.
bring in Canada.
It's
Yeah, it saves us money if we do it locally, and so we try to. But then there's certain things that you just can't get.
yeah,
Like the wallpapers come from all over the place and
yeah.
you know, everywhere. So they're usually in Europe, but there are some we use Aztec all the time
Yeah,
on
gotta
all of
use
our
Aaron.
boats.
You gotta
Yeah,
use Aaron.
everybody, I mean, they're the best. And so we have to, and things like some of your companies for the blinds, the turnover is faster than us getting it from a local manufacturer, which
Isn't that
is
crazy?
insane.
That's
So
crazy.
we'll be shipping from either down in the southern US or from Los Angeles, and it arrives quicker than it would if we'd ordered in from a manufacturer in Canada.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, in that case, you just have to, because you know what it's like with the timelines.
yeah, I know. I'm running out of time with you. I love the bees. I love this whole bee honey workshop you had going and the process that they're in with the bees and jarring all of the honey is so beautiful. Um, I'm sure that was fun to get all those jars.
It
Just
was very sticky.
yeah, I'm sure. Um, and then I think I just had the bus. The bus to me is fun. I mean, you're on a bus and you have to drape out the bus, and I'm sure you reupholstered all the seats and everything. But the purple plum drapes on the bus kind of crack me up. I'm like, I can't imagine being on a school bus and having drapery. It's like it's so fun.
Yeah, well, they're not supposed to be seen, right?
Yeah.
So we had to hide them. It's the same way that in Handmaid's the handmade, what did they call it? Handmade. We had a funny name for it, but they had red drapes. They had red shears.
Mm.
Um, but I liked Patty showed me different options, and I liked the tooth on these as well. It gives it some texture.
Yeah,
Um,
like the linen. Are they linen? Is that what it looks like it, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, well,
and then
we found the fabric and then we dyed everything.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of custom
yeah, because
dye.
it was a very specific color. It was we spent a lot of time picking the exact plum shade of their uniforms. Um, and then, we just did it a little bit cafe style so that we could still get some not plum light on their faces.
Yeah.
And he was like, can we just lower those a little bit?
Get a little bit of natural light into them.
Yeah.
Looking back on this season, do you have like, oh, that was our biggest challenge? Like getting this to camera was our biggest challenge in timing or money or just like scope.
All
Um,
the builds, wasn't it, Martha? We had to have all those builds
yeah.
done right up front, and they were giant sets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the
Yeah.
beginning, as with any first season, like you're establishing so much right at the beginning. And I think within the same week, we shot for the first time in our big stage set with the dining hall. But then we also shot on location at the school where, we'd done a lot of building and a ton of dressing, um, inside, outside, front, back. Um, and so that was a big week. And I had managed to get appendicitis
Oh no.
on our first day of shooting. So yeah, that was it was
Did
it
you
was
fake it? No. Did you?
She was in the hospital. We were trying to, it
Oh my
was
God.
terrible. And the poor thing that
Patty's
you,
like, I know you're not feeling well, but I need a decision.
Yeah.
Martha was really sick and not going to the hospital. And we were saying, you need to go. They were saying you might need a surgery. And Martha was
You got
like
it.
so dedicated.
They wanted to, yeah,
Well,
they
the
wanted
show
to
must go
operate. And I
on.
said, can we wait a couple of weeks?
You know, I have a friend and we talk about it all the time of like, as much as we love our jobs and as much as we know everybody appreciates our work, if I drop dead on the set, they would walk over my body to find a replacement for the next scene. Like, no harm feelings, but we got to move on. So you got to take care of you because they're gonna walk right over you.
Yeah,
That's
but
our
I hear that, but also this show for me, this is my baby. Like,
yeah.
you
Oh,
know how mothers are like, "Oh, I'll do anything for my kid." I was like, I am gonna see this set shot day one. Like I just was so into it, and excited by it. So it's fine. I
Patricia,
recovered.
did you have like a exciting moment on set with the with any of the dressing and the actors or like revealing the sets or anything?
Yeah, when we designed when we put in that ceiling and then they hoisted it up for the first time, that was pretty exciting. That moment of like seeing that go up. Um, but then I think the first day shooting the dining hall, like when they brought in 100 girls dressed in their uniforms, and it
Beyond.
felt like you were in high school. It just felt like that buzz of excitement in a room. And I was like, oh my God, we just designed this high school. And that was great. You could just tell how excited the actors were to be in the space and kind of be getting into the scenes. Yeah.
Patricia, do you have one or is it that moment?
Yeah, I mean, it was all, I think that I was just blown away by things like when those curtains, like when we hung the curtains and they were printed on the bottom with part of the pattern that Martha had designed.
Hmm.
Um, Things like hanging those curtains and when we'd walk in and see the tile work, things like that. I was really blown away. There was a scale that I hadn't worked very much with on this show. There were really, really big sets and crazy tall ceilings.
Mm.
Yeah, the first thing that the director said to me was like, when we are designing these sets, we want these girls to feel small. Like we want them to
Mm.
feel little.
That's a great note.
And yeah. And then when we found the location, it did have 14-foot ceilings in the exterior location. When you step inside, it had that scale. So we kind of matched that. And so everything was oversized. And I think it worked. As well with the chairs, like when we picked chairs for the dining hall.
I hope
Just to
I
to
hope your
scale them
budget was
down.
oversized. I hope your budget was oversized.
It was not.
It was
It was
not.
not. It was not. It was, I think it was happening throughout the industry, but the budgets were getting smaller and smaller for
Yeah.
series. So this series had a lot less money than Handmaid's Tale.
It doesn't look it. It looks super expensive and just beautifully done and well achieved of making these poor girls look small and look, innocent and everything that they've done. And they're just beautiful sets. I can't wait to watch the rest of the season. So thank you guys so much for speaking with me. I really
Thanks
appreciate
for having us. This is really
it.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.